Hello, YouTube. Today on The Naughty Librarian, I am trying to figure out if I even like reading anymore, because I'm not sure. So over the last few months, I was, doing episodes of Interview with the Vampire and other things, and I hadn't really reviewed any books in a while, so they've all been piling up. And the thing is, I am in such a reading slump because most of the books I've been reading, I have not liked. And if I want to be fair, I could say a lot of them were probably just very mid, and I didn't care about them, but a lot of them I genuinely didn't like. I DNF'd more things than I feel comfortable with, but I just didn't want to read anything. I don't know. Buckle up, everybody. I don't really like doing bad reviews, but sometimes you just gotta be honest about things, and I didn't like these books. In the interest of fairness, I have 4 books that I read that aren't necessarily bad books. They're not necessarily good books. They're incredibly mid. They give mid energy through and through, but I read them. So let's talk about these ones first. It's kind of like our bad book warm-up round. First up, I read Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This book's been out for a few years at this point. I believe they made a TV show out of it. I have not watched the TV show, but here we are. And I genuinely think it's very mid. I mean, I get why they would make a TV show out of it because it's very cinematic. Blake Crouch is a screenwriter, so his books feel very cinematic. I just felt like so much of the book were characters doing stupid things in order to move the plot forward, rather than like making a smart decision that moves the plot forward. Because our main character, Jason, is supposed to be a scientist, and he makes the stupidest decisions you'll ever see in your whole life. So other than that and how annoying it is, it's an okay story. It has good structure overall. It's kind of like a multiverse type of story, essentially another version of Jason from another dimension invented a way to travel the multiverse, and he comes over to this Jason's dimension and steals his life. So he got his life stolen by himself. And then he has to figure out a way back to his family and his wife. And there are parts I like, parts I didn't like. I mean, I don't really understand much of any of the science. I don't know if Blake Crouch does either, because it's imaginary. But here we are. I like it. I don't love it. It's entirely mid. Next, I have The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. And I hate putting it in this list because it's Leigh Bardugo and I love her. And even a book that's not her best work is still okay. So it's in my mid category because there's a lot of things that could have made this book a lot better. I think the cardinal sin here is that ultimately it's boring, which is wild to think about. It's historical fantasy. It takes place in the real world during the Spanish Inquisition, but in this real world, people can do little bits of magic. And if the magic comes to them from God, then it's okay. And if not, they're a witch and they burn them. So fine lines here. So like already the whole like time period and the tension and the magic, it seems like really, really cool, right? Somehow it wound up boring, and I don't know how it happened. Also, there's like a dash of romance in here, and I don't think it was like the most compelling romance to be had. Yeah, I don't know. There's just not a whole lot that was exciting in it. Our main character is Lucia, and I like her. I don't love her. She's a very kind of a dull heroine, but her aunt in this book, her name is Walitz, and she is so effing cool. I wish the book was about her. If they did a prequel all about Walitz, I would buy it and read it, because her story seems like dark and twisty and awesome. They did her dirty, and I'm not having it. So here we are, very mid energy from this one, but still, it's Leigh Bardugo. Even at her worst, she's still not that bad. So these last two in my mid category kind of have a subcategory, which is, well, that was fucked up, because they're both pretty fucked up books. First things first, I have Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. I like Josh Malerman. He wrote Bird Box, for anybody who doesn't know that, and I love horror books. And here's the thing, the book isn't bad. My main thing here that stops me from liking the book as much as I would want to is that it's really fucked up. For the whole thing. Just the whole book is just a series of fucked up stuff. There's not really any relief from it. And I think that's the problem here. I'm trying not to do spoilers, but essentially this whole book is being told from the perspective of like an 8-year-old girl. So that's already going to polarize the audience, because you're either going to like the writing style or you're going to hate the writing style, because it's very train of consciousness from an 8-year-old girl's perspective. Like she'll talk about something for 3 sentences and just go to a new subject, because that's how kids think, you know? So you're either going to get into it and you're going to like it, or you're going to be like, this is stupid, I hate it. One of the two. So it's already a little polarizing. For me, that didn't bother me. It just felt a little bit more authentic, considering he's a grown man writing as an 8-year-old girl. But like, it felt authentic to like children in general. And overall, this is kind of a haunted house demon possession type of a story. So you can extrapolate from there. And also, on top of all of the ghost and demon shit, the parents in this book also have a really shitty marriage, and it's very obvious how shitty their marriage is. And like, there's so many problems in it, frankly. It's just wild. Like, the best way I could describe this book is if Coraline made a baby with Skinamarink. So if you are like horrified right now at those two making a baby, then maybe don't read this. But if you're intrigued, Incidents Around the House is the book for you, because it's very fucked up, but also involving very much Coraline elements, because the little girl calls the demon Other Mommy. So take it for what you will, but yeah, if Skinamarink was too much for you, don't read this. Another one that it kind of pains me to put in the bad video is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. This is like a really cool special edition because it looks like an old VHS tape. And I love Geneva Rose. I follow her on TikTok. She's so funny. And she came to LA and I was like, oh shit. So I gotta go meet her. This is signed. And like, I hadn't read anything by her before. So I was like, all right, well, this is the one. And I wish I had read something different first than this one, because I already knew going in it was going to be a dark kind of murder mystery. The premise here is that these adult children come home because their mother just died, and they're going through her house and they find all these old like VHS tapes, like family movies, and they're like, oh, let's watch one. Ha ha ha. They put it in the tape thing, and there's their dad covered in blood telling their mom they have to hide a body. They have to figure out a lot of things, considering both the mother and the father are now deceased. So there's no one they can go ask. So it's a lot of like fucked up murder mystery stuff. I will admit, I picked the killer literally immediately. It's just a thing with thrillers in general, and I'm going to ruin them for you, but think about it. When you read a thriller, 9 times out of 10, the killer is the second person introduced into the narrative. So for me, it was a little predictable, but I could have forgiven that. The problem I was having with the book is that I don't think I was emotionally prepared for it, because this story, while it's like a twisty-turny murder mystery, it's also an exploration of grief, because their mother just passed away, and it's these children trying to deal with that trauma. Well, not children, they're grown-ass adults, but it's still a lot about dealing with grief and overcoming lots of things that give you grief in your life. So it's kind of unendingly sad, which makes it fucked up. Like, I feel like if it had more contrast, it had more like funny moments in it, it would have made those really disturbing moments more disturbing. It would have made the funny parts even funnier. I just feel like so much of this is just focused on grief and sadness and murder that like it was a lot to get through emotionally. So brace yourself before you read it. But overall, I mean, it's not a bad book. It's just sad. I guess is the best way to describe it. All right, that's enough with the mid category. Here's the juicy parts of the video, all the books I do not like. Let's start roasting them. As always, first category is books that I already have videos out on. I've already reviewed them. You know what? I'm just gonna say it. You Only Live Twice by Ian Fleming is a shitty book. It just is. It's a terrible book. It's probably the worst book in the entire series of 14 books, and this is book 12. Like, you've had to read a lot of books to get to this point, and it's so bad. It's like the end of the Blofeld trilogy, and like Blofeld has such a shitty ending in it. It is astoundingly racist. I'm gonna tell you right now, James Bond is in yellow face for most of the book. And I mean, this book was written in the 50s, and like people did that, but like, yikes. I don't think it was still like a nice thing to do back then either. But yeah, he's in yellow face for most of the book. So already you're like, yikes. And then nothing in the book makes any sense. No one makes like a logical decision. It's a hot mess express of a book. Nothing makes sense in it. And there's some good action, but like, it's just a fucking mess and I don't like it. It's bad. It's the worst one. I've said what I said. I also finished the Mummy trilogy by Anne Rice and Christopher Rice with The Reign of Osiris. And as a conclusion to a trilogy, I really don't think they nailed the landing. It was very kind of bland. They introduced so many new characters and did nothing with them. It was just kind of, how do we wrap this up quick? And I don't know, it just wasn't satisfying for me, I guess. I mean, it's kind of cool. It's like, you know, the 1920s mummies come to life. Like a new, entirely different group of immortals that, like, Anne Rice hasn't talked about very much anymore. And this book actually came out posthumously, so I do believe that probably Christopher was doing the lion's share of the writing at this point because Anne was not doing well health-wise. But yeah, it just did not stick the landing. That's the best way I can describe it. I have a whole video on it, so I'm not going to go into too many details here, but just, it was a very mid ending. Next category are books that I read the whole thing and I don't like them. I didn't DNF them. I wasn't a quitter on these, mainly because I had to read them, but like, yikes. So most recently, I read The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. We did this for the Blades and Bodice Rippers book club. We just did a live show on this one, so it's kind of already been reviewed, but essentially it's a murder mystery sci-fi dystopia. Essentially, there's an island, and there's a bunch of people that live in the island, and then like a couple scientists. And the scientists are like benevolent, and they make sure everybody lives, and like they're trying to save the world. Because just outside of this island is like this really dense fog, and like it's full of murder bugs. I don't really know how better to describe it, but it's full of murder bugs. And then things take a turn for the worse because one of the scientists ends up dead, and they have to figure out who killed this scientist. Because the scientist like had a failsafe built in that if they were to pass away, the fog would finally descend on the island, like the block would fall. So like if they catch the killer and execute them, the blocks will go back up and they'll be safe. So it's literally a ticking time bomb here. And overall, I found it so predictable. Like I guessed the twists and turns like right away, and I was very confused. Like I didn't know if I was supposed to be able to guess these right away or they're supposed to be surprises, because I feel like the twists and the surprises in here were advertised so heavily that I was like, yeah, duh. obviously that's the case. So maybe I'm a genius, I don't know here, but like for me it was so predictable that it wasn't necessarily fun. The characters aren't all that fun. It's just very mid, I guess. I don't know, I finished it because it's for book club, but it's not great. I guess it's not like a complete failure, but it's not the best. Another Blades and Bodice Rippers pick, I have Calamity by Constance Fay. Here's the problem with this book. It's not that it's necessarily bad. It kind of gives mid energy. The problem is there are so many books that are so similar to this concept that do it better. So this ended up being kind of boring and predictable. I can't remember the name of it. I'll put a picture up, but there's a series by Amanda Boucher that's also like space western kind of a thing. And that one, honestly, it's better. I'm just going to say it is. Like, there's some moments in this book that I did really enjoy, but overall, I'm having a really hard time remembering a lot of details from this book because it was so mid. There were some cool action sequences. Like, I just feel like the characters weren't ever really developed outside of a caricature at times. Like, stop making jokes, you're about to get murdered. You know? There's like, if you do gallows humor, you have to do it sparingly. Like if the whole book is gallows humor, it gets boring and unfunny. Like if you drop one gallows humor joke in here and there, they're funny. I think the problem here is the book is just trying to jam so many jokes into it that it makes them not funny anymore. You need contrast. You need parts that are sad to make the funny parts funnier. And this book was just cramming jokes down our throats in space. So yeah, I don't know. It's fine, I guess. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. So I read Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco, and I should have known better. I've read other things by Kerri Maniscalco, and I have not liked them. But here we are, trying again. And I think this cemented it for me that, like, me as a reader and Kerri Maniscalco as a writer, we don't mix really well, and that's fine. A lot of people like this book, and its sequel's good. I'm genuinely happy for you. For me, I was so fucking confused the entire time I was reading it that I could not get into it. Honestly, I could not understand when and where this happened. Which is the basic parts of the story here. Like, I knew it was supposed to happen in Italy because they're dealing with strega, which is Italian for witch, and they speak little bits of Italian in here. There's a whole thing about cornicellos. It's very like Italian folklore witch stuff. And as an Italian person, I was excited. I was like, yeah, I know those words, I know those things, I know those customs. So that was all cool. So cool, it's Italy, right? When does this happen? Because honestly, none of the parts of the story match up into a cohesive time period. Because sometimes, like, the outfits and clothes they're wearing make them seem like they're like post-war Italy, but then they maybe would have talked about fascism at some point, or Mussolini, and they just don't exist in here. So you're like, huh, that's weird. And then other times they're wearing such old-fashioned clothes that it feels like they're in the 1800s, and I was like, when are you? I don't understand. Like, I don't think they have radios. I don't think they have, like, normal things that would exist with other types of technology they have. So I was so confused the entire time. Yeah, it's like about like a witch girl and she's trying to like avenge her sister's murder with a demon. That's the basic plot here. But like, fuck if I know when this happened. So I had to ask my friend Alicia. She has a channel here on YouTube, Birdie in the Books. And I was like, girl, when are we? So she's like, oh, I get it. In book 3, they finally tell you. So like, it was this confusing on purpose. And I don't know how to feel about that because I feel like it's stupid. So having to keep reading this book, not understanding the very foundation the book is on, made it unpleasant. And frankly, I don't like the main character that much. I didn't care about like their burgeoning romance with each other. It was boring. Why did this happen? Everyone likes this and I wanted to like it too, and I'm bummed out that I don't. All right, our last group of books I didn't like are the dreaded DNFs, and I have 5 of them. Who knew? You know what? I have to stop giving so many chances to Claire Legrand. I'm just gonna say it, okay? And the reason why I keep giving Claire Legrand like so many chances is because she wrote one of my favorite books called Sawkill Girls. I love that book. And so I keep buying more books from her and then I don't like them. So I think I just need to stop, okay? I like that one book. But here we are. I tried to read A Crown of Ivy and Glass and I don't even know. I've read about 100 pages. No, I'm sorry. I read 76 pages. I didn't even read 100, but like, I hated it. This one is a new romantasy type story, a thick romantasy, which are very in vogue at the moment. And I really can't tell you much about the plot because I've only read 76 pages and then I gave it up. But, you know, magical world, families have magic in it, and there's like creatures in the forest and like they have to keep them out of the town or they're going to eat the people. And then our main heroine is from like a magic family, but she doesn't have any magic. And she's written as an unlikable character, and that's fine. I don't need her to be likable. She just needs to be interesting, and she's very boring. So I don't like her because she's boring, not because she's like an unlikable character, but yikes. I think for people who are just starting to explore the romantasy genre, this might hit different. It might be more fun, especially if you're like, you love romantasy. This one might do it for you. For me, I was just bored to tears. And then I know the line of the book that made me put it down and I could not pick it up again, where she was talking to what I assume was going to be her love interest. And she's like, I'm sensitive. And it was like that tone. That's how I read it. That's how it is in my head. And I refuse to think of it in another sentence structure ever. But like, yikes, I was like, oh, closed, nope. So sometimes it's just like a sentence that I just can't get past, and yep, DNF'd. I also DNF'd The Deal by Elle Kennedy, kind of for the same reason. I read a sentence that was so dumb that I had to put it down. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you right now, it was in the third paragraph on the first page. I've never DNF'd a book so fucking fast in my life. It immediately turned on me. I was not in the mood to deal with this girl's trauma for like 300 some odd pages. I was just, no, I'm not dealing with any of it. And the writing was just so, I don't even have a word for it. I don't want to say abysmal because that's like extreme, but that's how I feel. So like, let's just say light abysmal. I wanted to get into it. I thought it was going to be a light, funny rom-com college hockey romance, and no, it's not gonna be a rom-com. It's gonna be sad. And especially with the trope they're doing, because they're doing the whole like, oh, I'll teach you how to get that other guy you're attracted to. I won't fall in love with you along the way, wink wink. And then like, of course, they fall in love for real. And I love that trope. It's so much fun. Fake dating, I love it. It's my favorite. And it should be zany, and this one, I don't even know if it gets zany, but it starts off so dramatic that I just could not fucking deal with it, okay? And it sat on my shelf for 4 years, and I just could never bring myself to read it for some reason, and here we are. So maybe like subconsciously I knew. But here we are. I'm DNFing it. I don't know, I wanted to like it. 3 paragraphs, that's a new record. And speaking of mismarketing books, I DNF'd How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kong. And this one bums me out because I like Yulin Kong as a person. And I read not very much of this book, frankly. I think I read like 50 pages. Yeah, I read about 50 pages of this. And I had to put it down because look at this book. Tell me, there's palm trees, it's pink, they got a girl with a book and stuff, and it's books, and it's like cute, right? You think this is gonna be a rom-com, right? Especially when it sounds like a rom-com in the blurb. It's not a rom-com. This is a rom-dram. I don't know if there's a word for that. It's just so unendingly sad. I'm like, I cannot deal with these two sad, anxiety-ridden people for 300 some odd pages. I cannot do it. I don't want to do it. I came here for a rom-com in sunny California, and I got 2 people crying all the time, and I just cannot waste my time on it. And I think it's not the book's fault that it was marketed this way. It's marketed fun romp, and it's not. So, marketing really did this book dirty. I don't know. I didn't even look up reviews on it. I didn't want to know what other people thought, but like, I feel like it's very mismarketed. But if you really like dramatic romances where people have to like earn their happy ending, because I know a lot of people do, check this one out. Maybe you might like it. For me, I'm just like, I'm reading to have a good time, not to like think about things and be sad. So whatever. Mismarketed to the nth degree, but Yulin Kong is a very lovely person. I read half of The Resort by Sarah Oakes and never wanted to pick it up again. I really dislike it for a multitude of reasons. I highly recommend checking trigger warnings for this book if you're sensitive to certain topics, because they do it right on the page graphically, and it doesn't need to be on the page graphically. It bothered me. It still bothers me that I read that. So already I was like, ew. At halfway through, I cared about 0% of these characters. And this is like a murder mystery on a tropical island. Like, you would think this would be fun, right? No, it's just all a bunch of fucking degenerate people who are awful humans. And then you figure out, oh wait, this was supposed to be a revenge plot all this time, and this girl is taking revenge on this other girl who did fucking nothing to her, when she could have gone after the person who actually like assaulted her, but she's going after this girl who just happened to be in the house at the time, not the person who assaulted her. That would be too easy and make too much sense. So yeah, this book infuriated me, and I fucking hate it. I try to be polite when I do this, but this one really ticked me off so much. I really dislike it. And last up in this parade of books I did not like is The Ministry of Time by Kaliane Bradley. This one hurts because it seems like it would be perfect for me. It's like time travel, but silly, which is what I like. I don't like serious time travel, I like silly time travel. And they invent this thing that you could go into the past and like pull someone out of the past and bring them back to the present time. So once they have all these people from all these historical time periods in the present, they need to figure out something to do with them because they can't put them back. Enter like social workers, essentially, who have to like babysit them. So yeah, Ministry of Time, essentially we have like a social worker woman who's really boring, and she gets paired up with like this 1800s like naval officer guy, and she has to like babysit him, and then unlikely romance like forms between them, and I was like, yes, that sounds fucking amazing. I'm in. I genuinely thought this was gonna be a zany rom-com. Like, I thought they were gonna give me Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but they gave me Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So I don't know how I feel about this. Like, I didn't read the whole thing, so I can't really give a full review of it, but like I was bored to tears, and again, mismarketed. It seems like it's gonna be a zany rom-com, but it's really just more like, let me do my paperwork today, and it's boring, and I was upset because I wanted to like it, and it's so boring. All right, I feel like unburdened. I just like trash talked so many books. But like, I don't know what it's been the past few months. I've just been like constantly reading books that I don't like. I think if I could focus on just reading books that I like for the rest of the year, I think I'm going to pull myself out of this slump, because right now I just don't want to read anything because everything is boring. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below, what's a book you picked up because you thought it was going to be really cool and then realized it's entirely mismarketed. Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. If you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And if you want cool exclusive content, including early access to videos or a book club, you can consider becoming a channel member or a patron. Links for that are in the description down below. And on that note, I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.